Welcome to the Business of Apparel podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel podcast. Today is a really special episode. As you know, last week we celebrated our 1-year anniversary of the Business of Apparel podcast. And as luck would have it, our very first guest that we ever had on was the amazing, incomparable Ms. Raquel Vélez. And it just turns out that we were having lunch last week, and I felt like we were having a conversation that needed to be had on the podcast. So I invited her back to be our first repeat interview as well. So welcome back, Raquel. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's so great to be here again. I love it. I love any excuse to hang out with you. So
I know, I'm same. Definitely feel that way. I think, Raquel and I have been working together we were just saying, like, can we say we've been working for years together yet? And we officially can. We've been working together for years now. And I think where we were when we did our first interview was just in a very different place. The economy was in a very different place. The apparel industry was in a very different place. Totally. We were having such a good conversation the other day about size-inclusive brands and how tough everything kind of is right now in the apparel market period. And so again, I just felt like this was such a relevant conversation to have with the community. And I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about kind of what you're learning and what you've experienced over the last year, kind of being a leader in this space and being a leader for a brand that is absolutely size inclusive and making great quality product.
Yeah, thanks. First thing I'm going to say is, we're actually intentionally size exclusive in that we only focus on sizes 14 and up, or 1X to 5X. And that's important to say just because I think that we get hung up on, or I don't think there's enough attention being put on words that we use in this industry. And
Fair.
One of the biggest questions I get from retailers all the time is, well, what words should we use? Should we use plus size? Should we use inclusive sizing? Should we use extended sizing? How do we decide? And I'm like, there's no winning on this one because like the anti-fat hatred in our community, in our society has made it so any words that you use are just going to be painful and somebody's going to get triggered by it. So like, there are going to be folks who are going to be like, fat liberationists, let's talk about fat. It's fine. We should use the word fat the way we use skinny or tall or short. It's not a bad thing. It's just a descriptor.
Sure.
But then there are other people who associate fat with some really awful things, and that's totally understandable. I think context really matters.
True.
But at the end of the day, I try to either be extremely explicit, saying we serve sizes 14 to 30 and 1X to 5X. Just make it real clear.
Done. Yeah.
Or I say folks in bigger bodies. Nobody's managed to ruin bigger bodies yet, so. And it's
yes.
Okay. I actually tested these when I was doing pop-ups at REI last year, and I was just like, we make clothes for plus size. And people be like, I'm not plus size. No, I'm like, okay, well, the definition of plus size, and you've definitely been, okay, whatever. But once I started saying bigger bodies, everyone who fell into my category were like, I'm in a bigger body. That counts me. And I was like,
that.
Okay, great. Okay.
That is so quintessential of you. Like, I just think your entire process, I don't know, you're just so methodical, so scientific about everything. And I just feel like that is so quintessential of what you would do at your brand. Just like, I'm going to test every phrase I can possibly think of until one just resonates and hits. It's just so brilliant. And so I love that you've come to bigger bodies because it felt acceptable and it felt good to the people that you were trying to serve.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was neutral enough, right? I mean, I think one of the interesting trends that has evolved over the last several years, there was this huge body positivity thing. People were all like, love your body. Everything is great. And then it shifted from body positivity is for, folks who are in bigger bodies trying to find self-love, and turned into this like, all health fads are great. Like, you should totally love your body in every way. And it's like, whoa, okay, this is taking a departure. And I think also there's a lot of people who are like, I don't love my body today.
Sure.
Is that okay? And it's like, yes, it is. And so I've really started embracing body neutrality. Like, at the end of the day, we can all agree that our bodies are incredible and fascinating, and they do so much for us, right?
Yeah.
Like, even on our worst days, we manage to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And our bodies allowed us to do that. Our bodies also allow us to do incredible things like, ride your bicycle down the Pacific Crest Highway.
Even the simplest of things, like when you think
Right.
about your body, like goes completely unconscious for 8 hours a night and somehow still wakes up in the morning and like fully functions. And during that whole time, you're unconscious, but it's like breathing and your blood is pumping. Like, the human body is amazing when you really think about it, and you can appreciate
really
whatever shape or form it's in. I totally agree.
Exactly. So I'm like really trying to embrace body neutrality, and really embrace like other people embracing body neutrality. Like, look, it's okay if you hate your body today, but can we just accept that it's awesome?
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
I love that.
Let's just, and then also that every single body, every human being is equally deserving of love and respect as any other human being or body. Like, let's just start there. We don't have to love it. We don't have to hate it. We can just start at the basics.
Yeah. I think this is why Unmarked Street and Alpine Parrot have always been like so good together, because those values are just so super aligned. Like, let's start with love and kindness and compassion in all that we do, and it will just make the world a better place.
100%. 100%. So, so starting there, and embracing like the words and just identifying what words we should be using. But that actually touches on one of the bigger difficulties I've encountered over the last year, which is that everybody is at a different spot in their body neutrality journey.
Yeah.
And so whether you're a customer and trying to, come to terms with the fact that you have 7 different sizes in your closet, to being a brand and trying to decide how inclusive do we want our sizing to be, to when you're a retailer, well, who are we serving, and can we find these different sizes from different brands that accommodate the people that we want to serve? Like, everybody's at a different spot on that journey, which is really hard. When you're a brand, all you want is to have some consistency so that you can say, this is my customer, whether it's direct to consumer or via wholesale, this is my brand, this is who we serve, this is how we serve them, and everybody's in agreement. But when everybody's imagine if everybody had a different opinion about, I don't know, I'm gonna make something up, like apples. Like, some people are going to be like, red delicious or nothing else. Other people are going to be like, can't with the red delicious. We're going Honey Crisp.
No, I think this is a real thing that you've landed on here. But we'll continue using it as an example. Yeah.
But, and then like, but if you're an orchard, like, I feel like right now, if you're an orchard, at least high level, there are people who like apples and there are people who don't like apples. So you can produce your apples, send them out to your wholesalers and your individual customers, and that they're there and everything is fine. We all agree an apple is an apple. We could have specifics that we like about certain types of apples or other types of apples. Do you like the little Honeycrisp, the big Honeycrisp that are big as your head? I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. We can all agree an apple's an apple. In plus size fashion, all bets are off. No one can agree. What is plus size? What is a size 18? What is a 2X? Who should be wearing what? And so, because of all of that discrepancy and all the feelings, because there are so many feelings on every side of the board, I almost feel like I have to like be a therapist in addition to being a brand. Because like you get messages from customers and they're like, but I wear a size in this other brand, and your brand, I have to wear a size and that makes me uncomfortable and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how much education do I need to give you around why it doesn't matter on the one hand?
Yes.
And also why that happens, why that exists. Rach, you know this, but there are a lot of people out there who think that robots make their clothes.
Yeah, not true.
Like, I don't, as someone who used to be a roboticist.
Right, that's not true. Yeah. They've tried They've tried robots in apparel manufacturing. It does not work.
Not yet. Totally.
Not yet.
No, it doesn't. As a former roboticist, I genuinely feel that will be very, very difficult for robots to ever do that because armholes.
Yeah, and stretch of fabric. I mean, they're just
the worst.
There is also just a skill to knowing how to handle specific fabrics. And unless we can teach each of the robots about stretch differential and I don't know, there's a lot there. I've read some articles on it. It's really interesting, but it is definitely not something that the apparel industry has been able to crack at all, like even a little bit.
Totally. I have sources that tell me that some of the largest apparel companies in the world have spent billions of dollars trying to figure this out, and they have failed horribly.
Yeah.
So anyway, the reason I say this is because people genuinely don't know how apparel is made. They genuinely, there's no reason for them to, right? They go to a store or they go online, they press the button, they, take it off the rack, they go home, they wear it, or they don't, whatever. I think that there's so much education that needs to be dealt with. And then also all of the cultural traumas that this particular customer has had in their lives, that trying to navigate all of those things makes it really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on a couple of things that you mentioned, number one, it is really important, I think, to educate people. I've had a couple of people on the podcast recently to talk about this exact subject. Your size that is inside the label on the inside of your garment that nobody else can see doesn't matter.
Nope.
If you are just wearing the size that makes you feel comfortable, you are going to go out, you're going to feel more confident, you're going to be able to do whatever it is that you need to do in that garment, you're going to be able to move in it. If you just forget about whatever the heck number or letter is on the inside of your garment and just disregard it.
Yes.
I just need to follow 100%. A size chart. I need to buy what's right for me. And then bam, I'm going to look good.
Absolutely. I think I keep trying to tell people, just take the damn number out.
Yeah.
Like, buy it, like, record it somewhere, because technically every brand should be consistent, at least on their own sizing, right? So when you buy a size 2 in Alpine Parrot, it should be a size, like, if you buy our bristlecone flannel in a size 2, you should also be getting our Royal Sun hoodie in a size 2.
Right.
Like, that's the expectation.
Yes.
So write that down, or buy it from alpineparrot.com and we will record it for you. Like, just, that's your key. Like, the thing to remember is that is your special code for getting clothes that fit you. That is it. It is
for
just
that specific brand, though. And I think it's key to also point out that, like, your 2 is very different from what some other people might be thinking of in the way of a 2 when we're talking about that now, which just re-emphasizes the point to me that the number inside your garment doesn't matter, because brands make up these numbers. They make up words that mean different fits. They make up just, and then there's vanity sizing, and we could get into vanity sizing probably for a while, but that's what's happening. And so if you're only paying attention to a specific number and it bothers you that you can't buy the exact same number at every single brand, you are going to take on a level of stress and anxiety about your apparel that you do not need in your life. Oh my goodness.
No, you don't. And like, it actually just hurts you.
Yeah.
No one else is affected by it. Like, genuinely. Yeah. Like, the brand doesn't care what size you are. The retailer doesn't care what size you are. As soon as you remove it from your garment, no one else who sees your clothes will ever care. I mean, honestly, as long as you're wearing them, no one's going to know what they are. But like, let's just say hypothetically, you've got other people who do your laundry. Just take it out. Take it out. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares at all.
It means nothing. And again, body neutrality. It's irrelevant. Your numbers are irrelevant. It's just about what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's really just a tool to help all apparel brands sell their apparel so that we don't have to worry about returns all the time. So we build these body size charts in a certain size range so that we can put online so that when you're shopping, we can say, hey, here's a really helpful tool. When I'm telling you this is a size 2, this is what it means compared to your body. And so we're hoping that we're getting you the right size by giving you that tool. It's not necessarily something that we're trying to make a statement about. And it's just not, I think, as malicious as a lot of people really treat it.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of people saying this is true to size. This is true plus size. This is true. Like, I'm a true blah. And I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah. What does that mean? Like, so you wore it in one brand, but another brand. So is that brand the source of truth, or is another brand the source of truth? And I try really hard to also explain to people that, like, if we acknowledge that we live in a world of a lot of different types of people, different shapes and different sizes, and we want to embrace that diversity, right? We have to have different size charts at different brands. Yes. Because if every single brand had the exact same size chart, then the people who don't fit in that size chart will never find any clothes ever, anywhere. And then they will be running around naked. Do you want that? I'm all for people feeling, freedom in whatever clothes or not that they want. But there are certain things that I'm not ready to be seeing other people naked. Yeah. I do not. I'm not a member of Nudist Colony. It's not my thing. Other people might be cool with it. I'm not. It's fine.
I agree with that, though. I think it just really baffles me when people say true to size, because as we know, even if we're not talking about extended sizing or plus sizing or sizing for bigger bodies, which is, I totally agree, a very confusing area of the size chart, because there are so many different ways that it's out there. Even if we're talking about let's just even use small, medium, large. If you're shopping, I mean, nobody goes to the mall anymore because they've basically all died. But if you went to the mall and you walked into store A and you tried on a medium, and you walked into store B, the chances of you also being a medium at that store is probably pretty slim. And so if you're talking about being true to size, like, I just don't believe that there's a truth in sizing out there anymore. And you really, as a person and as a consumer, have to be dedicated to finding what feels comfortable and what feels good on your body. And so as much as you want to be a true medium, I would love to be a true medium so that I know everywhere I shop, I'm a medium. It's just not the reality of what's out there. And I think a lot of people kind of hide behind that statement when they're trying to make a return, or they're trying to voice some sort of other complaint and they don't quite know how to express it. They just want to complain that you've done a poor job with your size chart.
Totally. And I mean, honestly, I genuinely, at the beginning of building Alpine Parrot, I thought to myself, should I just not even bother with the numbers, like with sizes? Should I just call them after like flowers or something? Yeah. Like, this is the daisy fit, this is the rose fit, but then I hate flowers. So I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I was like, should I use, like, what could I possibly use that is so neutral that people would just be like, oh, okay, whatever. But then they would complain anyway, because they'd be like, no, but what is this in like real numbers? And you're just going to be like, and I was like, forget it. It doesn't, there's no good way to appease every customer when they have so different expectations around what is supposed to fit and what isn't. And I mean, the reason we have two different fits for both tops and bottoms is that we acknowledge that people come in different shapes in addition to different sizes. And so like, if you have bigger boobs, you are often feeling some sort of way around all of these brands that just kind of scale up from a B cup. Yeah. Like that sucks. If you have hips, like all of the pants, especially in the outdoor industry, are just a shrink and pink it of men's pants. And so like, if you have hips, forget it. Like there's no chance you're ever going to fit into anything properly. So that's why we have our mountain fit. It doesn't make sense to me how people are like, oh, but I should be catered to across every single brand. And I'm like, most brands don't even know you exist, friend. Like you gotta pick and choose your battles. And
are you frustrated by feeling like an outsider in your own industry? You're not alone. I spent years feeling the same way. Are you tired of endless research and you can only learn this stuff by getting a job in fashion advice? Me too. That's why I created the Business of Apparel online course. My years of insider knowledge condensed into video tutorials, demos, and downloads. Learn at your own pace, no fluff. Just key topics like building target profiles and mastering financials. This information is genuinely unavailable anywhere else. Grow your brand, become an apparel industry aficionado, and unlock millions in potential revenue. The value? Over $50,000 with millions potential for your brand. Don't miss out. Sign up for the Business of Apparel online course today at thebusinessofapparel.com/course.
And yes, I fully acknowledge there's more work on the side of the consumer. It sucks for them. It sucks for me as a consumer, right? Having to be like, okay, when you say a size 16, what do you really mean? Because
I think that's true across the board, though. Everybody is in that boat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think, I've said this to a couple friends before, and I know we're getting really blunt here and we're just talking, like, this is just the reality of what's going on. So if this is bugging you and you're listening, just know that we're out here trying to get the message out that your size shouldn't matter. So if you love a brand, if you've loved Alpine Parrot, and you love the product and you want to support the community and the mission, and the thing that's holding you back is some number inside the pants, just know that there is such a bigger and better opportunity to support great brands doing great things without getting hung up on what kind of a size issue that you're kind of internally having. And we're going to get into this conversation here a little bit next about how I think it's really hindering the plus size market. All of this back and forth that's happening. I want to have this conversation too, but I'm just going to be really blunt and say too, like, opinions are like assholes in that everyone's got one. And when it comes to apparel, everyone really has an opinion because it is like the one thing on this planet that every single person has some sort of relationship with. Like, even if you are in a nudist colony, you have a relationship with apparel and clothing in a way that makes you hate it so much or not like it so much that you've decided to go move and be outside of any sort of quote normal community to go live in a nudist colony. And that is a very strong opinion about apparel. And so I just kind of want to get it out there that it is really tough for brands to be able to be correct and quote right for every single customer when they're trying to do the right thing for their ideal customer. And if you're wanting to be part of their community, sometimes it is a little bit of extra work on your end as the consumer, but that is honestly going to be at almost any brand.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part, honestly, are the people who are on the ends of the size chart. Yeah. Right? Because so at Alpine Parrot, as I've mentioned, we cover sizes 14 to 30, 1X to 5X. If you're a size 20 or a size 3X in Alpine Parrot, like, or in another brand, and you come to Alpine Parrot, you are probably going to be within 1 to 2 sizes of what you expected. Yeah. And that's cool.
And that's normal.
That's totally normal. But if you're a 1X or a 5X in Alpine Parrot, or like in another brand, and you come to Alpine Parrot and expect one of those two to fit you and you are outside of the range, that sucks. And I totally get it. Like that is super hard to stomach because you're like, wait, I was so close, but you know, your smallest size is too big for me, or your biggest size is too small for me. And that really hurts, especially if you do resonate really well with the brand and you want to be participating in it. And I think that in that case, if you're a customer, send a message to the brand and say, hey, I love what you're doing and I really want to participate, but I can't.
Sure.
And if you're a brand, listen to those customers and find out how many are there, right? I mean, I'm sure for me, if we have 5 customers who say we need this size, I seriously think about it.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, because I only need 5, but I can't do it if there's only 2.
Sure. Yeah.
I need enough people, but like as a brand, I will listen. If there's enough voice there, I'll do something about it.
Yeah.
It won't happen tomorrow. It'll probably happen in a year, but
but that's also part of the process. I mean, that's how we evolve as brands.
Totally.
I do want to get a little bit into how, and I've noticed this even when I was back at corporate, like how difficult it is, like this, it's almost like this vicious circle that happens with the plus size market or the market for bigger bodies, where we as brands know that it is part of our responsibility to offer clothes in these sizes, you know, so going all the way from like 2X to 5X or 1X to 5X or 6X, like your brand, is really important. And so we put all this extra effort into creating this product, into creating this correct size run. We do all of these extra fittings. We go through this entire grading process, and we're working with our factories on how to create different size markers. And then we get it out there. And we find that they don't often get purchased. And one of the biggest reasons that I hear that the plus size market doesn't want to purchase from brands who are doing all of this work is a lot of the time because these brands are quality, highly sustainable, conscious, well-meaning brands who are trying to put really good product out into the market. And those products cost a little bit more money. That's just the way that it is. When we're more sustainable, when we have higher quality, those products cost more money. They are going to last you a lot longer than your Walmart t-shirt, but it is going to cost you a little bit more money up front to buy.
Yeah.
And so we go in this circle where we make this product. The consumer decides they don't want to buy it because it costs a little bit too much money. We end up with way too much inventory on our books. And those numbers essentially tell us that there's no market out there for these sizes. And so then we decide to not sell those sizes anymore. And then we get in trouble for not selling all of those sizes. So then we go back to the drawing board and try to create it again. Yep. And this is the cycle that's going on in a lot of different corporate industries right now. And I know like REI, part of the program that you were in, they struggled with that. You know, how do we bring in all of these sizes when we can't sell them?
Right.
And so I'd love for you to speak to that. I know you've got all kind of thoughts on that too.
Oh my gosh, so many thoughts. I mean, okay, so there's multiple loops going on, right? On the one hand, we have all of these, exactly as you described. Brands hear from the customer, we want sizing, like we want options. Brands go out of their way, make new stuff because they're like, oh my gosh, there are more customers. We have an opportunity to sell. We can be more inclusive. This is amazing. It takes a year. They do all the things and then they launch it and then it doesn't sell. And I think the pricing is definitely one of the things. Another one is marketing. Yeah. Honestly, there are a lot of people who are just like, I didn't even know this existed.
Sure.
And you're like, oh my God, like there are brands that just launched this year that I saw the only marketing they did for their new plus size line was a couple of Facebook ads.
Oh, wow.
Literally. That is the only thing they did. They didn't announce it on their website. They didn't announce it in newsletters. It was only as a Facebook ad. And you're like, why did you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Why not
Shouldn't
blast
you be
it?
Screaming from the mountaintops? And I don't know anybody at the company, so I couldn't ask them directly, but I thought it was really interesting. And then, so there's a marketing aspect. And then there's also just, a third aspect, which is the people who want to participate don't actually know if they are going to participate to a level that warrants the cost of participation. Right. So
Fair.
by which I mean, there are people out there who want to try cycling, but really good cycling performance apparel is expensive.
Yes.
So they're like, well, what can I find something that's a little bit cheaper that allows me to try it out and see if I like it or not?
Yeah.
And we could make arguments like, oh, wear leggings, wear, just whatever spandex you have. But there's a huge difference between wearing what you wear to the gym and wearing properly fitting performance apparel for that sport. My favorite example of this are people who want to try camping for the first time. They'll buy the cheapest, or they'll rent a really cheap sleeping pad, which is like made out of foam and it like folds up like an accordion and it's rock hard. It's not very warm. And you lay down on it and you're like, this is miserable. I'm literally sleeping on the ground. This
So
is
now
stupid.
I don't like camping.
I don't like camping.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let me introduce you to performance level, mattress pad or sleeping pads that are inflatable. They're cushiony. They're soft. It genuinely feels like I'm on not the best mat. I mean, like you're not on a bed, but it's pretty close.
It's a huge difference.
I mean, the good news is that sleeping pads are fairly, like there's like 3 different sizes. So a lot of rental agencies will have them that you can try and you can actually find out. Like, so instead of paying $2 to rent a really bad sleeping pad, you pay $5 to like rent a really nice sleeping pad. But when we move into apparel, that's not always an option.
Yeah. It's hard to find rentals. Yeah.
Exactly. And so because there isn't a rental market, people can't try it. And then they look at the prices and they go, whoa,
yeah,
I'm not about to pay $140 for a pair of hiking pants. I could just wear leggings.
Yeah.
Except I think we talked about this last time. Yes, you can hike in leggings. No, I do not recommend hiking in leggings for more than maybe a couple miles.
Yeah.
Especially if you have chub rub. It is just awful.
Yeah.
Chafing happens. And then if you sit on a wet log, now you've got a wet butt all day. It just sucks.
Yeah.
But you don't know the difference between my stuff sucks or this experience, like this activity sucks for me. You don't know. Yeah. So it's really, really, really hard. And I think that there is certainly an opportunity for a lower cost option to step into this space. The difficulty there is I can't step into that space because, as a friend of mine put it this weekend, she was saying that the reason why this stuff costs so much is because this is the cost of making things that aren't made with tiny hands.
Mm. Mm. I like that one.
And I was like, ooh. I mean, I go,
touchy, but yeah.
It's really like, whoo.
Yeah.
I say instead things like, if I could train mice to sew, it would be cheaper. But we can't do that yet.
We're not all Cinderella. We're
not all Cinderella.
No.
I like that one better. It makes me feel a little bit better. But the reality is, when you think about why are things so cheap, and it's because somebody is being taken advantage of in an unfair way somewhere along the supply chain.
It is true. And as much as it's maybe not nice to hear that or to kind of think about where your very affordable clothing comes from. A lot of that is being pumped out at factories who have unsustainable and very unethical practices. And the reason that they are so cheap is because of that. So they can exploit people. They're paying them less than minimum wage wherever they are located. And so because of that, those brands get to buy each unit as a very, very cheap cost. So then they can pass on that low price to you. And while that seems amazing when you go shopping to be able to buy these very affordable clothes, number one, we all know those clothes fall apart really fast. So did it really save you any money? Because if you can only wear it and wash it a couple different times, and then you have to buy a new one, like, I actually argue that you're wasting your money by doing that, and you're spending a lot more money, but just my opinion. I also think too, like, the apparel industry is the number 2 polluter on our planet. And the more sustainable and the more high quality that we can be to have garments that last a lot longer out in the world and are made with sustainable resources and with ethical practices, that is the right way forward for our industry. We have to figure out how to do more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, my engineer brain immediately goes to, well, how can we create a system by which people can try things without necessarily developing a low cost option? And I think the answer is brands who are a bit more expensive. We work really hard to sell through as much as that we can at full price, because there are people who are willing to pay it.
Yeah.
You just have to find them. So that's a marketing problem.
Yeah.
And then allow for a secondhand market. Like, that's really how we open things up to more people, because once it's secondhand, I can't sell something for full price if it's been used. Like, that just doesn't work that way. But I can sell it for a massive discount if somebody is willing to, have something that's been used, but like gently loved, right?
Yeah, previously loved. Yeah,
exactly. But that takes time.
Sure.
It takes time. I think another issue that people aren't really talking about, but is worth noting, is that there is still, for people in bigger bodies, there has been such a huge narrative around changing the size of your body that people think that their bodies are going to change. And they probably will. But not always in the direction that people are hoping, quote unquote, hoping that they will. I mean, in the rise of Ozempic and all of the things, like, we're coming back into, I don't know, I don't need heroin chic to come back, but the 90s are coming back in all or other ways right now. So, but I do think that also throws things for a loop. Like, people are like, oh, I don't want to spend this much money if I'm just going to be changing size.
Yeah.
And trying to explain to folks that, I mean, this is getting into just diet culture in general, but like, 90% of diets don't work.
Yeah.
And in fact, studies show that people who diet regularly have a higher chance of actually gaining more weight than before they started dieting.
Yeah.
So it's a really vicious cycle that is, again, going back to body neutrality. Like, can we just accept ourselves as we are?
Yeah.
And do the things that we love and not try to fit into some unrealistic expectation that's set upon us. This is where the therapy has to come in. People are like, no, but I'm going to be losing weight soon, so I'm going to wait and before I buy your very expensive pants. And it's like, okay, I need to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah. And as someone who personally has yo-yo dieted for my adult life,
Totally.
I've been at a point where, I felt really heavy. I've been at a point where I felt really thin. It is not the weight of my body that has ever made me feel happy or good. I'm just going to throw that out there. Even when I maybe was a weight that I was really happy with, there was still an element of, like you said, kind of like the therapy that I needed to be able to accept my body for what it was and not feel obsessive then about where I had gotten to or how to maintain something like that. And it's only been recently where I actually have been literally going through therapy for the last several years and have come to a place where my body is my body. And I've weighed the same thing, whether it's been more muscular or it's not been muscular or whatever, for the last decade of my life. And the more I've been able to just accept it and then put myself in clothes that make me feel good in this current body, that is where happiness and acceptance and also a release
Yeah.
really comes like, I don't need to think about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
so there, I think definitely is an element of buying clothes that are right for you. And
Yeah.
I will,
And now.
exactly now,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this is your body now. And even if you do
Mm-hmm.
plan to change it 6 months from now,
Mm-hmm.
what are you wearing today that's making you feel good and feel confident? Because if you don't feel confident today, are you going to have the motivation to get your butt up and go to the gym? I know I
Right.
don't when I don't feel
Yeah.
confident.
Totally.
So I think there's so much to that of like
Mm-hmm.
accepting who we are, buying good clothes that fit us right now, today.
Yeah.
And I'm always a huge advocate for what Alpine Parrot is out there doing, because I think you are doing amazing, amazing work for this community. And so huge kudos to you for the work that you've been doing and the brand that you've put together.
Thanks. I literally could not do it without you. So, tiny things there. But no, it's a labor of love in a lot of ways. Like there's no other way to put it, because it is just so tricky to find the right path on all of this. And if there are other founders of brands, or even just people working at brands trying to navigate this stuff, like I'm always open to chatting about it.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. There's so many independent, but also interconnected pieces that, like marketing feels totally independent from everything else, except it's really not.
Yeah.
And, you have to have a marketing budget, but you also need to have a development budget. And you also need to have like a self-care budget, because you're going to just want to tear your hair out all the time from dealing with all of these things. They're all interconnected.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for being back here today. And thank you for being my friend and just one of my most favorite clients and all of the things. So if you are interested in checking out Raquel and all of the amazing work that she's doing, you can go to alpineparrot.com. You can also follow her on Instagram. Are you on LinkedIn as well?
Totally on LinkedIn. Yep.
At Alpine Parrot. All the things.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Raquel. If you liked this episode, please leave us a review. We would love to hear from you, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.